Hi everybody and welcome back to the Candid Book Club on YouTube. We are very happy to have you with us today. We've got a slightly, maybe controversial discussion to have today. We know that one of the hardest things to do is get your first book out there. And one of the things we've discussed recently as a book club is why is the second novel so difficult to get right? Bit like second album syndrome. So first thing, before we go into some of our favourite second books or some books that we felt fell slightly short of the first debut, we thought it'd be good to discuss why do we think it is so difficult to get a good second novel out. So, thoughts? Anyone have an opinion on why do we think sometimes it's really difficult? They've worked really hard to get the first one out, that sometimes the second one falls short.
I think it's because I think from what we hear these days, when you have your debut novel, you're usually already signed a 2-book deal. Mm-hmm. And for that reason, like the second novel, there's more of a push. Like as soon as you finish the first one and you've done promoting, or even while you're in the stages of promotion, you're already having to think about your second book and try and get that out as quick as possible. Whereas I think before it was a case of you get your debut out, if that does well, then you get the chance to sign a second book. So you have more time in between to really flesh out an idea. And I personally think that's the reason why sometimes it can be a bit hit and miss is as to whether your second one has done well. And I think that's more in recent times, whereas I think before when we looked at like old second novels that are really, really well, you realise that the first one was really good, the second one's really good, and it's because there was a bit of a gap in between them. Whereas these days it's like it takes about 2 years, a year and a half between like first and second.
Yeah. I think so much of it is social media though as well.
Yeah.
Like, imagine you write a book and then suddenly it's picked up on TikTok and, you know, everyone's going crazy for it. And then you're just like, the pressure from not just your publishing house, but from everyone online to be like, where's the next book? We're so desperate to read it. We can't wait to read more. Like, give us a sequel, do this. Like the pressures to sort of bow down to what other people want to do rather than like maybe your own creativity, I think can sometimes fall into play here. So which is why like reading pre-social media is like so different, I think.
So much better. It's just more organic. I feel like a publisher will capitalise on that social media buzz and be like, right, write us a novel. It's all commercial, isn't it? They know that people are going to buy it. Whether or not it's good is a different story.
Do you think it's also partly because authors don't tend to have as much power? Like they can't say, no, I'll finish the book when I finish the book and it'll be ready when it's ready. Like, you know, they just don't have that power anymore because someone else will take their slot, someone else will take that
Depends
window.
on which author it is.
Yeah.
Depends on which author.
Definitely. So, shall we go over a list of some of our not so great second reads and some of our great ones? So, Linda, why don't you kick us off? Which second book did you read that just was a bit disappointing?
So I recently read Nightbloom by Adzo Medie, second novel. First one was His Only Wife that came out, I think, lockdown, maybe a little bit before. And I really breezed through that one. I quite enjoyed it. Don't ask me what it was about, can't remember. But the reason why I thought, let me pick this one up, is that it's been longlisted for the Women's Prize 2024. Now, I don't really pay attention to these lists, but I was like, I've got it on my shelf. Might as well read it. Guys, what a letdown. What a letdown. Like, I could predict what's going to happen. I just feel like it was so, like the book was rushed to get out for, you know, whatever, it could be a publishing reason.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel authentic to me. And all the characters are very like flat. They were like caricatures. It just didn't work.
Yeah.
So that for me was a massive letdown. Nightbloom.
Disappointing.
Didn't like it. Sorry, guys.
Wow.
Tanya, what about you? Emily Henry hasn't proved herself recently.
No, the thing is, I don't know which one's her second book, but the first one I ever read was Book Lovers. And I didn't mind it. I thought it was sweet. I tried to read it again recently and couldn't get into it. But then I also didn't mind Happy Place. What was that? Happy
Yeah.
Place.
That could be like a third. Who knows?
And then the other one, Beach Reads, I thought that was awful. And I think that may have been her second read. Yeah. I feel like I'm over. I think I'm grown, guys. I think I'm over.
I'm not clapping for that because I like your genre.
You know what? I love a good like romance YA, but I feel like it's just not hitting the same way as it used
Because you're
to.
such an expert, Tanya.
Yeah.
Like,
Maybe Tanya needs to come out with her own.
I was gonna say, what made the one of Emily Henry's that you really didn't like really, really bad? What was it that was missing compared to her first one?
It was just the same thing. I feel like all of her books has the same thing, and like it's like the enemies to lovers, and it's just, I feel like it's overplayed. It's just it's boring now.
But can you imagine? It might be quite boring for her. She's got famous because she's written an enemies to lovers book, and now the publisher's like, write more.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm getting bored of this. It's the same story.
But the thing is, with her, and I think authors that write the same enemies to lovers, people still really enjoy that stuff.
Yeah.
So they're doing well. It's just, I'm just over it. I just think
as I said, you're the expert.
Yeah.
You've read it all. They need to give you something better. So if you're listening, Tanya's not impressed.
Good. Jess, what about you? Which second read disappointed you recently?
Maybe not so recent, I think, but a few years ago, I read The Mothers by Britt Bennett, and I absolutely loved that book. That was one of those that I picked up for the cover, I'm not going to lie to you. But it turned out to be her debut, and it was fantastic. It was such an interesting novel. And then her second novel, called The Vanishing Half, I actually don't even remember what it was about. So
There was a lot of hype around that one, though.
that maybe I'm not even.
There was a lot of hype because it was her second book,
That's
and The
the
Mothers
thing.
was so good.
And I don't even remember the plot of the book. I don't even remember how I felt reading it. So for
I
me,
remember.
that's a flop.
It's two sisters who pass as white. So
One
I
of
think
them does.
Yeah.
One of them
One of them
does.
does,
One of them
yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's about and they just one of them leaves home quite early,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
pursues a
Yeah.
completely different
Yeah.
way of life.
Yeah.
They're from the States and whatever. And one actually goes on to live as if she was a white person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She stops her kid from playing with a black kid's neighbour.
Yeah.
That's exactly
And then
it.
they do come full circle
Yeah.
later on, don't
Yeah.
they? So it
Sounds good.
It sounds really good, but I don't think it was the best novel to describe like that kind of setting.
It just didn't have the impact that it should
Yeah,
have done.
but The Mothers was so much better, but it was The Vanishing Half that really blew up for her.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't read The Mothers, and I just read The Vanishing Half, and I really liked it. So I think I might have benefited from no comparison, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. What about you, Emma? Any second books that you don't like very much?
I can't think of any, but I can think of second novels that I liked more.
Go on then. Flip us onto that.
And that would be controversially in this group anyway, is Sairish Hussain and Hidden Fires. And I know that we've sort of spoken about this, but me and Tanya anyway, we all really enjoyed The Family Tree. I think we recommended it loads. Everyone who we did recommend it to loved it. It was so good. It was so fresh. And then Hidden Fires came out, and that took a few years to come out actually.
Yeah.
And I loved it even more. I think the characters were even more endearing. I love like a grandpa, grandma type of like relationship. I just love them. I love old people in general. Reading about Yusuf, the grandpa, he was so flipping cute and in his little Savad kameez, and I could see him as like one of my own grandparents. And I think talking about really important issues like the partition and memory and dementia, and as you're getting older and being taken care of by your children and everyone having their own lives, and there's also like chronic illness is mentioned in there as well, and that's something I can relate to. So there were so many things going on, but it didn't feel too much, it didn't feel crammed in, and Sairish did such a good job on it. And it's one of those books that even though it's like fairly big, I read through it really, really quickly, and I really enjoyed it.
So this is where I think this is how you get the good second novel. I think the key is to like retain your own voice, but find a unique angle on a story. I think that always seems to be the way, is that the writing style stays the same, but the angle, the perspective that you have on a story or on a situation is so sort of unique and authentic to the author and in their voice still. I think that's what makes the second banger.
There you go. Well, we also want to know what your thoughts are. So let us know any second books you've read that you didn't like or really did like in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to go in now with one of the ones that was also disappointing for me before we go on to the wholly positive stuff, because I really, really loved The Power by Naomi Alderman, and I really got into it, and it was right up my street. It's slightly dystopian, women getting power. And then I read The Future and I was so gutted that it was so rubbish. It was pants. So I'm really, really sad about that. And it's basically about like the future, and the context, I think, in the kind of the blurb, if you like, sounds good. And it's about a future being run by a few billionaires, and what does that look like? But it was just really bitty, and there were too many characters, and maybe I just don't have the attention span for a book that's got like 15 characters.
Oh, I hate those.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Not my vibe. But one that I did, and I am really excited to read, is Poorna's book. You love the second novel, don't you, Linda?
So we read In Case of Emergency. I think that came out a couple of years ago. We did a book club. I think, Omi, you found that book. And we all really enjoyed it. And we had an amazing discussion, which sort of elevated our rating of the book with the author last year. And then, this is fine. I thought it was really strong. I think it was even better than In Case of Emergency. And it feels like she refined all the bits that were good, like what you just said, and just made it better.
Yeah.
Nice.
There is still a bit of a crazy bit at the end where I was like, is this necessary? But it's fiction.
Yeah.
You know, it's fiction, so you need some sort of like crash bang
Gotta throw yourself
sometimes.
in.
Yeah, got to throw yourself in. So there is that where I was a bit like, okay.
Yeah.
But it all sort of wrapped up really nicely. And I thought the ending was great.
Cool.
What about that one, Mimi? Kylie.
Kylie Reid, Come and Get It. Do I need to spend more time talking about Kylie Reid, Come and Get It in my life, just generally? Oh, it's so disappointing. It's
Book
just
of the year, apparently.
from who? Who said
From
that?
anyone.
Oh,
I don't know.
God. Yeah, I'm not so sure about this. Again, maybe it's me. It's like The Future. It's got too many characters in it. I couldn't follow the story, and I found it really boring. And I just pushed through because I really liked Such a Fun Age, and it was really disappointing. And I'm really gutted that. Do you know what? Talking about like why is the second novel so hard? I think Kylie Reid, I'm going to project now slightly. I think she put a lot of effort into Such a Fun Age. I think she spent a huge amount of time writing that novel and worked really, really hard to get it off the ground. No, it was good. It was good. It was good. And I thought it was an engaging story, and I felt like I really got to grips with the characters. Like the mum in that, I was like, yeah, I know where this has come from. I know who this is. And I think that one did really well. And the publishers were just like, let's just get the second one out just 6 months after, and get it done really quickly. And I just felt like it was rushed.
But
I felt like
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
but it felt rushed. It felt rushed. It didn't feel well edited. Maybe it's
the one.
maybe it's the editing. Maybe it's just the editing of, oh well, her first one did so well, so let's just give this one a glance. It felt rushed. I don't know. I know there was a gap, but it felt rushed.
Fair enough.
What about Coco Mellors, Jess?
Yeah, that's me. Talking of books that we read recently, Coco Mellors' new book, Blue Sisters. I got to read it recently, and it's fantastic. It's even better than her first novel, called Cleopatra and Frankenstein. Blue Sisters is about like four sisters who live in New York. One of them dies, which is really sad, but they're like a very, very close unit, and their relationships just completely fall apart, and they all end up in kind of different sides of the world almost, doing completely different things. They've lost their connection to each other, but something brings them back to New York, and they're kind of forced to be together and reckon with their relationships, with their behaviours, with their relationships with their parents and their surroundings, and how their life is going to look in the future. And it's just such a fantastic look at sisterhood, addiction, terrible parents, not really having very much money, but sort of putting out the image of wealth. It's all kind of rolled into this book, and it's such a beautiful deep dive, whereas Cleopatra and Frankenstein was just about these sort of two main characters and the kind of bit players in their lives. Coco Mellors have like really expanded her range with this, and there's sort of so much more emotion and feeling in it, and it just feels so much more whole as a book. So yeah, it was great to read something that was even better than the first one.
Yeah, the more you talk about that, the more I'm interested, I think, in reading it.
Brilliant. Should we talk about Koi Mai a little bit as well, one of our favourite writers?
Yeah. So I really enjoyed The Mountain Singer. I thought that was amazing. It's probably one of my top 10. I thought Dust Child was great. Lots went into it. We've discussed it many, many, many times, but it just doesn't have the same impact for me as The Mountains Sing.
But I was the opposite to you. That was interesting.
But
It
you
shows how
hadn't
good
read-
they are.
But did you read Mountains Sing before or
Yeah.
after?
No, I read Mountain Sing before.
Oh, really? Okay.
I read Mountain Sing before. You gave it to me, and it was fantastic. And I read Dust Child as we were lucky enough to launch that with Kwai here in London, and it was even better for me. I just loved it. But I think that's probably one of the hardest things to do, given the standard that she writes at. To kind of maintain that standard, I think is really, really difficult to do.
I just hope that she doesn't become like more commercialized. I think the thing that I loved about The Mountain Sing was that it just felt so like Vietnamese.
Well, she's had to fight. She told us she had to fight to keep the diacritics in there, to like not put glossaries in there, to kind of keep that authenticity in the book as she writes. So long may that continue.
Either way, like both books are a great insight into history, culture. A lot of research went into both.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't take away from that.
Finally, I think the one that probably divides us the most is like preference order for Sally Rooney. And I know we're talking about her a lot this year because she's got a new one coming out in September. So she's got 3 out so far. Conversations with Friends was first, then Normal People, and then Beautiful World, Where Are You? We're not talking about third books, so we'll leave that one.
No.
But number 1, Conversations with Friends. Who preferred that one to the second one, Normal People?
Me.
You're on your own, Jess.
For a reason.
No. Normal People was...
stand firm in my love for Conversations with Friends.
Rubbish.
Probably because at the time of rereading it, like there wasn't another writer out there like Sally Rooney. And she, like, it just sounded so different to everything else. Although now everyone is now trying to imitate Sally Rooney. When that book first came out for me, it didn't sound like anything I'd read before.
It's true.
And I loved it. I absolutely loved the dynamic.
The characters were so unlikable.
I think that's the point,
Fog
though.
sis was just such
yeah.
a bore. And then so was her on and off
Bobby.
girlfriend, not boyfriend, sorry, her girlfriend, her friend, her partner in their little trio, like the little duo that they were doing and performing. Oh, it's just
I don't disagree with you that it was a good book. Where I disagree with you with Love is I can't believe you don't think Normal People was better.
I just did not. I didn't vibe with any of it. It just felt so long, drawn out.
But you like the show though, right?
I loved the TV show.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
This is like
Yes, it is.
Tanya just went straight in.
it's true.
It is the same.
It's such a good adaptation.
It's really a
good
true
adaptation.
adaptation.
But I think the whole point is, without dwelling on her too much, is that whether it's Conversations, Friends, Normal People, or I mean, we're not going to speak about the third one.
Yeah.
Like she captures
Something.
Yeah,
she does capture
like
something.
someone will like something unless you're on the complete opposite camp where you're just like, I'm never reading this.
Yeah.
This woman's work.
But it's interesting that Normal People is what exploded her. Her second book is what took it to the stratosphere. Like, to the point where I don't...
I think it was the cover.
Do you think it was
the cover of like the sardine tin?
Yeah.
And they're all like sort of in it, and it's like very green, whereas the first one is like whatever. I honestly think it's the front cover of the second one.
And I think the fact that it got picked up, and I think
Because it came out
It
in
picked up
lockdown.
but it got picked up ages after the book came out.
For TV. The TV show came
no,
out
the
in
TV
lockdown.
show came out ages after, but it
And
got
then
picked up
people-
quite quickly. And I think that's what put it on people's radars as well, because it's like, okay, if this is a book that,
Let me go read it.
they've picked it up to commission it as a TV show, like, let me see what it's about. And I think I just loved it. I
Did
thought it
anyone
was
watch
so good.
Conversations with Friends?
Yes. It was just as annoying as the book.
No, it's actually really bad.
Oh my God. And they're even more irritating, if that's even possible. They made already irritating characters more
I don't
irritating.
think I can finish it. Honestly,
Yeah,
I think
I
I got
wouldn't
to like
bother.
halfway and I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, on that note, I think that's probably where we need to round it up. So yeah, please do let us know what makes a good second book. What second books have you enjoyed? We haven't even touched on sequels. What are your favourite sequels out there? We want to know all your reading habits. So please leave us a comment, like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you on the next video. Thank you.